Right, well, it's time now for a check of what the French press is leading with. I'm joined by Elena Casas, who's going to be showing us good morning. What have we got on the front pages? I'm assuming a lot of Dominique Strauss-Kahn this Wednesday morning.
Yes, there's only one story for the French papers this morning. They're not interested in economic collapse or in Libya. They're interested in their favourite story. Back again, Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Le Parisien leads this morning with a quote from the man himself. The end of a terrible and unjust test, which is pretty typical of the coverage we're getting around the French press this morning. They're all focusing on the relieved Dominique Strauss-Kahn with these pictures of him leaving court with his wife, both smiling, saying that he's been cleared, the paper says, which isn't actually technically true. The New York prosecutor has decided not to pursue the case because he doesn't think that the victim, Nafissatou Diallo, is necessarily a credible witness for a jury because she lied in the past on her asylum application for the US, which isn't the same thing as the prosecutor saying he thinks that Dominique Strauss-Kahn is not guilty. He did say he still thinks a non-consensual sexual encounter took place, but that's a detail that's missing from a lot of the French press coverage today. I've got to say they're quite celebratory that Dominique Strauss-Kahn has been released.
But one paper has picked up on it. That's the left-leaning Libération.
Well, they mentioned there are still court cases to come against Strauss-Kahn. They've got a DSK case, The End, with a question mark on the front page. So they look forward to the civil case that Diallo is bringing against Dominique Strauss-Kahn. In a civil court, of course, there's a lower burden of proof. She just has to convince a jury that it's more likely than not that he did rape her. So the paper says we shouldn't give up on her, or give up on her chances of winning damages against him, which could, of course, be disastrous for his career and his reputation. Though it doesn't stop some of the journalists within the paper defending him. There is even a piece inside comparing him to people who were found innocent after they'd been on death row for years, calling it miscarriages of justice in the US, which is a little bit excessive, I think, even if you believe he isn't guilty. But there's also some perspective in there from the sociologist Eric Fassin, who asks why a woman's credibility should be so much more scrutinised than a man's in rape cases. He says the US justice system is, after all, admitting that for a rape jury, it's the victim of the crime who needs to have a flawless past and not the accused. And he says he also brings in a racial element there, saying it depressingly proves that not only is a woman's word, in the opinion of the New York prosecutor, considered less credible than a man's in front of a jury, is the fact that she's a black immigrant woman important. He says in the politically charged context around immigration in the US, he says that might also have played a factor in the New York prosecutor's decision.
All right, well, let's go from the left to the right and see what Le Figaro has got to say, talking something about a comeback for him.
Yep, that's their focus. They say after the charges are dropped in New York, the delicate return of Dominique Strauss-Kahn to France, they're looking at the consequences of this decision for the French presidential election. Now, they do point out that there are still suspicions hanging over his head, and they say it's not just his sexual behaviour that's been brought to light here, it's also his millionaire lifestyle. We had endless newspaper articles, didn't we, about the $40,000 a month apartment in Tribeca where they were living, and Le Figaro says it might be that which puts off left-leaning voters as much as his sexual behaviour. Le Parisien also points out that with these big suspicions hanging over his head, Socialist Party members and candidates can't rush to congratulate Strauss-Kahn on his return because it might play very badly for them with the French public.
All right, and finally, Le Monde saying that the US court was merciless with Dominique Strauss-Kahn.
Yes, they say that regardless of the outcome, the case has destroyed his career and his reputation. But the editorial here does make the important point that if those things have been destroyed, in the end, it's his own fault. It's his own past record of sexual behaviour with women, harassment and so on, that has really damned him, even if he's innocent of this particular rape. And it says that's what's brought him down in the public eye, and in the end, there's no one to blame but himself.
All right, powerful stuff there from Le Monde. Thank you very much indeed to you, Elena Casas.